Good morning. Um, all right. So, by show of hands, how many of you guys are actually in the industry? Uh, Fantastic. So, you guys are the experts. We're here to just drive some interesting conversations. If you were in the session in the morning, you realize that we have to probably look backwards a little bit before we look into the future. So I thought it was interesting. I'm going to do exactly that. So banks in the early days was really a place. It was a person that you knew. Actually, way back when, I think 1600 before Christ or something, it was a temple that people went and just gave money to, and they had to look after it. It has pretty much progressed. By the 1950s, the place was not scalable. That's when the first mainframe came about, Irma, right? If you heard of it. And it's actually in the 1950s that they came up with the account number, because that was the only way that you could recognize a person. Before that, it was just everybody would write on a little card, your name, Eric. You have so many million, and you live in, right? And then they would place that card, and every time you went in there, that's how you would. I mean, I live in Sri Lanka, and some of our banks, they still have the passbook that keeps updating the information. Um, and fast forward to the 1970s was the birth of the self-service, right? The ATM. And then finally, it took just a few more years before banking became everything anywhere in your mobile apps, right? What's interesting is, I'm just trying to relate it back to what we heard from Frank in the morning, the speed in which and the changes happen, as you can see, have also shortened as time has progressed. So what else has changed? Give this slide a minute. Definitely the increase of automation, significant increase of automation as time has progressed. The change in focus from being very internal focused to be able to automate things internally, to be able to do their jobs for services, to being very, very customer focused, right? You need automation now to really be able to respond to your customers. And there's also a little bit of trust that has evolved through time. If you think about it, back then, trust was anything that looked like that. It had to be sealed. It was a place. It was a person that you knew, perhaps from childhood, right? But now, if your app goes down for more than 5 minutes, you're going to lose trust in that bank with the newer generation. So before I kind of go into the next sort of talking about the trends, I want to take a moment to talk about first principle thinking. Raise of hands if somebody's familiar with first principle thinking. Okay, one person, so I won't bore the others by explaining this. This is traditional thinking, right? The goal, if it's to get to a sphere or a circle, what we take is today's challenges, we understand the current state, we list down what we want for the future, which is the circle, and we make slightly incremental changes, right? But everything that has evolved significantly have done it with first principle thinking. So what is first principle thinking of a bank? One is to store value. This is where you come, store your money, right? Make wealth, right? Increase investments. The second thing is you move money. You make payments, right? You make transfers. That's the second principle. The third is you access credit, right? You open, give out people loans, give out people lines of credit cards. These are the three principles, first principles for a bank. So what people request, like things like Uber or anything, the Teslas of the world that have done is taken these first principles, apply the art of the possible, and then you actually might not end up with a circle. You might just get a box, right? So what I like us to think about during this session is how do we apply the first principles and the art of the possible into generating something very, very new. And what does that future look like? So what are the challenges? But let's still start with the challenges, right? What are the challenges that the banks face? Definitely increasing competition and changing models. It's predicted that 4.7 trillion of your most profitable business from revenue is going to be taken away by fintechs, right? On top of that, you're still dealing with a lot of regulations. If you raise of hands here where your teams or your technology teams are spending more than 70% just dealing with this. More than 50%? Or are they actually innovating? 50-50? Anybody has a different answer? How much time do they spend just dealing with regulations? All right? I'm glad, the others at least are maybe 50-50 or less than 50-50. It's usually the other way around, so good job. The third thing is outdated mobile experiences. A lot of banking, what they did was they actually took what they had in their normal existing systems and just put it in a mobile app just to have a mobile app. But that probably wasn't the right approach because guess what? 5 out of 6 millennials prefer actually using a social channel and want that social experience, right? And one of your largest percentage of users, 47%, are all going to be millennial. So that experience has to change. It has to develop. Security breaches. How many of you worry about this? Hopefully everybody. A little worried that not all hands went up, but okay. And this is obviously a great concern for everybody as well. So how do you develop as fast as possible but keep it secure? Next, antiquated siloed systems. How many of you are challenged by old systems that really slow you down? Are we giving stickers? Yeah? Yeah? So this is a big one. All right. And the biggest challenge of all is the rising expectations of your customers. Today, everybody wants everything and a snap of a finger. It's all immediacy, right? And next, it's all about me, right? Everybody needs to know me. It's me.inc. If you don't know me, please don't talk to me. Right? And if you have even the slightest poor experience, they're gone. They're gone from your organization to another that gives you a better experience. What's the art of the possible? Now, I'm going to just put some things on it. It's not every single thing that's out there. But if you think about it, now we're talking about, obviously, a lot of low-code apps that speed up our forms of innovation. We have composable apps due to very slick integration platforms that just are able to fit things into perspective, fit things into a microservice, etc. You've got cloud-native platforms. You've got quantum computing. Obviously, you wouldn't put your own quantum computer. You would obviously leverage something that's on the cloud, but that will really secure your bank to no end. You've got total experience packages. You've got distributed enterprises with blockchain and things like that. So the art of the possible is vast. So what do we see coming up as a trend? And how is it different from what we've seen so far? So I'm comparing against traditional banks, digital banks. This is not very clear. I apologize because the font's really, but I'll walk you through it. If you compare the presence from traditional banks, digital banks, to neobanks, and the banks in the future, the presence, obviously, from a traditional bank perspective, it's all going to be physical. We know that. Digital banks and neobanks is going to be digital. Now, what's interesting is the future banks, they might not even exist as a bank. I was speaking to a CIO recently in Singapore who said, Chinti, I want the bank to disappear. Like, what do you mean you want the bank to disappear? How does that? And this is not a small bank, by the way. He said it needs to be embedded into people's lives as a super app. I need to be there, lockstide with them as they go through life, and I just need to assist, right? So think of that concept. So people, the younger generation probably will never use a bank as a bank. They'll just want to, listen to their dreams. They want you to help automate their money. They want it to just go to the right pockets, their own, but the right pockets for traveling or, maybe towards a house. Actually, they are not even going towards a house these days, right? But they just want it embedded in. They want us to be a little bit, as banks, a lot more conscious about what's going on in their lives and respond to that. So we need to really drive a lot of insight, really understand how we get all of this information about me.inc, right? Customer support. Usually in person in a traditional bank, 24/7 online, there are chats. The future bank will be proactive, right? We know the spending habits of the younger generation. They are not into maybe saving a lot and things like that. But wouldn't it be lovely when they walk into a store that the application recognizes that you walked into a store and your traditional, typical purchasing is about, it's greater than your bank balance at the moment, right? And to avoid the embarrassment of swiping your card and not being able to purchase what you've just bought, how if they proactively extended a line of credit for that purchase, right? It is possible. We know today where people are. It is possible. Charges, almost negligible. It's decentralized finance, so all of the fees that we attribute will potentially go away, so it becomes very, 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 very affordable. Banking license, probably not required for these new life apps that are helping you save, that are helping you build the life that you want to live, essentially. Documents submission. Obviously, we all understand the forms that we have to fill when we go into banks. Here, it'll be insight-driven. They know about you, so you'll only be probably offered things that are pre-approved for you anyways. And part of that information is already filled out and submitted to you for the future. Last but not least, service type. Everything is digitized. Everything is hyper-personalized, hyper-automated. Payments be done anywhere, anytime. That's the world we're talking about. So if I just summarized it a little bit, we're talking about the super app. That I can make payments. Obviously, payments are a big part of what we do. We make payments anytime, anywhere, through any channel. It's hyper-personalized to me. I can only do this through decentralized finance because I have to reduce costs. And it's also highly hyper-automated so that I can actually serve these needs of these new customers of the future. How is this possible? We think you have to migrate, and you all talked about antiquated, siloed, massive platforms that cannot move at the speed that you want to move. So the future is actually building digital platforms as a service. Number one thing, that can move at speed, right? This is obviously bringing in an integration, APIs, microservices that can move faster, low code, so that you can build these applications in days, perhaps in hours, right? Simplicity is going to be it. I think that's also the beauty of Creatio. It's very simple to understand. If you don't understand it, it cannot be done. It won't move as fast. It's too complex, too cumbersome. It just won't happen. Obviously, these two need to be done And we have to also ensure security and governance through all of this process. This is what it might look like. As you can see, digital platform as a service, the bubbles around identity server, so knowing your customer, making sure they have access to this platform, whichever channel that comes through, they are recognized. You don't have to keep signing into multiple platforms. You have apps as a service. Then you have databases as a service, and within the digital platform is your enterprise integrator and your integrating platform. Integration is key, right? And in integration, it needs to be independent, so not tied down, so that you can move your southern systems, northern systems at any point. So you have an independent integration platform. It needs to be scalable, so you need to be able to ramp up and ramp down resources at any point. It needs to be flexible, agile, and secure. All right. This is a little bit of the marketing piece of it. Who are we? So we're a group of companies, Mitra Innovations. We have a specific organization that does low codify, but we are domain-led integration experts. We help build, connect, and operate. So we do it end to end. That is really our value proposition to you. And my goal is really to accelerate your business vision. If you have a vision, I'm there to work with you to really accelerate it. We are a global partner. We have about 300 people globally. We've done over 500 projects, actually connected to about 400 back-end systems and front-end systems, and we operate in 25 countries. I'm going to tell you a little story about how we gave this fintech some wings. It's Wingbank. This is a Cambodian organization, and they were a fintech. And they had acquired, through their payment platform, about 70 to 80% of the customer base already, citizenship in their country. Obviously, their CEO is really smart, decided that that was more than any bank or any organization in that country. So they decided to convert themselves into a bank. And we did it for them by helping them build an integration platform, and we're still working through this, but in 6 months, they converted themselves to a bank. So I thought I'll just leave that story because it's an interesting story of a fintech actually now really grabbing the market share of existing retail banks. All right, this is some of our experience. So we have experience with cashless solutions, fintech solutions, commercial banks across the globe, non-banking financial services, as well as investment banks. So a good mix of experience. And I'd like to leave you with thanking you for listening and also saying, with what I really hope for you, that the art of the possible and you have the freedom to create whatever vision that you want to create. All right, thank you so much.